Thank you very much. Our next session is another a session on education, but it focuses on international programs and how they might deal with polarization issues. Once again, we'll call on Ms. Jennie Lim for her presentation.
Hello again. This presentation will cover international programs in the domain of education. So, what are international programs? International programs are often found in universities and are commonly referred to as studying abroad, where students can study internationally for a certain amount of time. Many people who have studied abroad find this time in their life to be really important and enlightening. And here at the University of Minnesota, 35% of students study abroad in their undergraduate studies. An important note about international programs is privilege. By this, I mean that a lot of times only privileged people get to experience this. If someone's able to study abroad, it means that they're in college and they have the financial and academic flexibility to take classes at another university for like a semester at a time. Also, minorities and lower class students are less likely to study abroad. So the relevant question is, are the outcomes of mandatory service significant enough to make available to the general public? Here, this graph shows the demographic breakdown in people studying abroad and their percent of population in America. And the data shows that generally, minorities are less likely to participate in such programs given their share in population. Also in international programs, you can find some soft skills that result. They're in a short-term study abroad program, which was 21 to 27 days. Students' level of global awareness were significantly larger after the program in general global awareness, functional knowledge, and foreign media. And in regards to the aspects of studying abroad that led to these increasing, in students' development in global, international, and intercultural competencies, were having the students participate in on-campus global or international activities like enrollment and coursework, interactions with international students, and participation in global and international co-curricular activities. Another study aimed to measure increases in global citizenry and whether this can be cultivated through studying abroad. This study defined global citizenry as social responsibility, like having concern for others, for society at large, and for the environment, global awareness, understanding and appreciation of oneself in the world and of world issues, and civic engagement, active engagement with local, regional, national, and global community issues. And here are the aspects of that study that increased global citizenry. It wasn't just studying abroad that made these happen. It was the combination of both being abroad and an academic focus and experiential field learning that yielded the greatest increases in global citizenry. And in this case, what field learning means is that in the study, 75% of their studies happened to be out and about, immersed in the culture in the country they were in. And a note about this study was that the significant increases in global citizenry were brought only after 4 weeks of instruction. Here are the key takeaways. Study abroad programs like the one I just talked about and the other one that was the short-term study abroad program, you don't need an entire semester to gain these benefits. 4 weeks seems to be sufficient, meaning that short-term study abroad programs are a viable option. And a really important part about international programs is just being there is not enough. One has to be immersed in the country and the culture to gain the global awareness and the soft skills that come with being abroad. Here are my references.
Thank you very much for your presentation. And now we'll have questions from the legal team. Mr. Senthringalam for the pro team.
Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you, Jenny, for your presentation. On the last or second last slide of your presentation, you mentioned that being immersed in a different culture is vital towards reaping the benefits of an international study. How would you define being immersed in a different culture as interacting with people of different attitudes and in order to solve a problem.
Yeah.
All right. My second question would be, is 4 weeks a saturation limit towards like having effective results, or is it just the necessary level and you could reap more benefits if it went longer?
I think the whole 4 weeks thing meant that in order, like the soft skills that they measured, um, the in order to gain like significant amounts of those soft skills, it took 4 weeks. So I guess beyond that, they might be able to learn more, but I think the 4 weeks just meant it took 4 weeks to get this far, kind of thing.
All right, thank you. No further questions.
And now from the con team, Ms. Madeline Stankiewicz.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. So Jenny, how does having mandatory study abroad affect the benefits that one gets from study abroad? For example, the Carlson School requires study abroad for you to get your degree, et cetera.
I think that mandatory study abroad, I don't think people see mandatory studying abroad as something bad or negative. I think people look forward to it a lot of the times. And I feel like studying abroad is something, there's no science behind this. This is just what I'm saying, but so that's probably not important. My research hasn't focused on the mandatory aspect of studying abroad versus voluntary studying abroad. However, back on my other presentation, I did say that mandating people to do stuff, they might not want to do it in the future, but they are going to reap the same benefits. And I guess if it is mandatory, that means that more people will be able to reap those benefits.
No further questions, Your Honor.
I have a question. The measures of global identity that you referred to, how closely related are those to some of the polarization and racial polarization issues we've been talking about? Is there a direct correlation, or is this sort of a different subject altogether?
I think it could be related in terms of like global awareness. I think it could be related, but isn't directly related to it, saying that global awareness does not mean that you're going to be decreasing in polarization. It could just mean you have a better understanding of world happenings and your place in the world, and you might be able to connect that idea to polarization, but it isn't direct.
But at least some of your charts did show that our participation in global work abroad at least did include some heterogeneity in terms of the populations that did experience that, even though it was somewhat lower in the minority groups.
I think that the graph that I showed was comparing the people, like the demographics of people studying abroad in the US versus their share in the population.
Okay. Thank you. At this time, we'll have statements from the pro and con legal teams. Mr. Santhrlingham, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. We on the pro team believe that every participant should have the ability to participate in an international program. But like we've also heard from Jenny, the effect that privilege and wealth can play in terms of having the opportunity to do so. This unfortunately represents the status quo. And also the folly of a self-selecting system is that you don't extend that opportunity to everybody. On our plan, we would extend this to people from lower socioeconomic background who wouldn't have the opportunity to do so. But this program, as Jenny mentioned, does not need to take up the entire 6 months. So participants could also participate in an international program at the same time, also within that 6-month period, perform service at home so that they get to interact with fellow Americans. Why we think the international component of a service program is vital is because it allows you to redefine the idea of what it means to be an American and what it means to be a global citizen, as Jenny alluded to, in a society that does not generally share your same experience, your same values. But also I think it would be interesting to note that I'm pretty sure the con team would agree the value of an international experience. And some of the reasons why those are valuable is cultural immersion. Now, while an international country is significantly different compared to another state, there is a degree of cultural difference between a state like Minnesota and, as I alluded to earlier, like Arizona or Florida. And therefore, we believe this is an extension of what we are planning to do throughout our entire program. Just give people the ability to interact with people who are not like them and do something meaningful, as Jenny alluded to. To do something meaningful is essential towards learning how to develop interpersonal skills that can hopefully reduce polarization. And therefore, we think that the mandatory part of the program has a much more equalizing factor relative to self-selection. The University of Minnesota has a study abroad program that costs $6,000. Not a lot of people can do that. And while we will allow people to serve a part of it, we still believe it's essential to also serve within your own country. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Ms. Stankovitz.
Thank you, Your Honor. So you might be wondering, why are we bringing up international programs? We've been talking a lot about domestic programs. And the reason is because of what Jenny talked about, that sense of national identity that you get when you go abroad. Now, I have a very personal experience with this. I was lucky enough to study abroad in Costa Rica for 4 weeks, where I taught theater to first graders. And I not only came to terms with my identity as an American, but also as a global citizen. However, I had the choice to do this and the choice as to what service I was performing. And I personally believe that that is why I enjoyed my time so much. I was doing something I loved with other people who also loved doing what they were doing. And thus we had the commonality and the trust to be able to talk to each other about the differences between the United States, Costa Rica, and some of my friends were even from Germany. Now, not everybody has the ability or the means to volunteer and travel abroad in their 20s. Some people start families between 18 and 30 or might have to take care of family members. Thus, we believe that sending people away from their families to get this sort of experience is not the solution, but rather allowing people to choose to do this service, potentially when they are older or perhaps with their own children when their children want to volunteer as well. We believe that this will create both the American identity, a sense of community within the United States, as well as that idea of civic responsibility and global citizenship. Thank you.
Thank you very much.